Good morning, rise and shine. And if this is the afternoon or the evening and you're listening to this podcast, welcome. This is Johnny Cinco with the professional, the profesh, the pro, the road to mastery. And this is exactly what, the focus is as we get ready to engage into what it is to be a professional, what it is to that journey into mastery. And it all has to start with something, right? And somewhere books I recommend, again, one of the books that we're going to dive into today is called Mastery. Um, one of many books that I recommend as well. So what I ask is that if you are tuning in, and you have a chance to order, go to the library, buy this book. I have no affiliation, no sponsorship with this book, but at the same time, I always recommend it because it kind of gives you a guideline of what it is to pursue mastery in any of the fields that you foresee yourself being part of, building towards. But one of the keys, right, as we dive in is, and I'm going to kind of share a little bit of what it is of that childhood like feeling of what it is, that emotion, that calling as a child, right? And even though currently right now, my profession is in the military, is being a chief warrant officer, but the freedoms of what it is that I do, the the artistry, the passion, all stems from, as a child, just again, growing up in a small town, farm town, called London, California, kind of close to in the actual Central Valley. There was a tree in front of my mom's home, and I remember as a child I always would climb this tree, and I would love to climb to the highest point I could, and I always challenged myself, to go to higher portions. And sometimes there's days where I would, find myself finding a way to get to a specific point. And then some of the challenges in that tree was getting to a point that was hard to get, right? To where I can sit down and see. And it might not necessarily be the top where I can oversee kind of, the town's homes and things like that. Because everyone building various homes and seeing the rooftops and just being able to see just the landscape. Because, around my small town where I grew up, and there was a lot of orchards, right? So you had some great fields, peaches, some farm workers, cattle farms, so they had corn. So so whatever that was, just being able to see that at that level, and feeling the breeze on my face, feeling that freedom of what that feels like to just kind of feel at that moment in time just free, right? But to get to that point, there was challenges. I had to start at the bottom of this tree and then work my way up. And there was certain risk, right? There is, as a child, I think one of the thrills of doing that is the risk of possibly falling, possibly, having an accident. And that's kind of the thrill, right? Like the thrill of being able to understand that you're going to challenge yourself and wiggle my way, or I maneuver my way through to get into the top portion of that tree. And that's kind of like the way any trajectory that we kind of foresee in our life, right? In the past that we, one decides to do. So if you're in that position currently right now where you find yourself in a profession, in your career, where maybe this is the stepping stone, this is the stepping stone to get to where ultimately you want to go. Some of these require sacrifice. Some of these require time. Some of these, require that meditation, that time where you just have to be on your own and figure things out. So again, I challenge you uh, to come with me in this journey. I will tell you my journey and kind of what cemented a lot of this road to mastery. Um, so here we go. And again, we're going to tap into this book. I'm going to read a couple of sentences, paragraphs of this book to kind of align what it is that we are, as we kind of get into this journey of what that is, which is the road to mastery. So here we go. This is a book, Robert Greene, same writer that wrote the 40 Laws of Power, but this is a mastery. So I'm not gonna read the whole beginning of it, but I am gonna read kind of the beginning part of this chapter, which is chapter one, which would be discover your calling, the life's task. And it says here, you possess a kind of inner force that seeks to guide you toward your life's task, what you are meant to accomplish in the time that you have to live. In the time you have to live. In childhood, this force was clear to you. It directed you towards activities and subjects that fit your natural inclination, that sparked a curiosity that was deep and primal. In the intervening years, the force tends to fade in and out as you listen more to parents and peers, to the daily anxieties that wear away at you. This can be the source of your unhappiness, your lack of connection to who you are and what makes you unique. The first move toward mastery is always inward learning, who you really are, and reconnect with that inner force. Knowing it with clarity, you will find your way to a proper career path, and everything else will fall into place. It is never too late to start the process. So again, it's just never too late. One thing I can say about Robert Greene and many many professionals, and then again really masters. A lot of them, it takes it takes time, right? And some of this mastery comes through life experience. So just keep that in mind that it's never too late. And right now we're going to go into what is Leonardo da Vinci, right? And Leonardo da Vinci, it's going to talk about this hidden force. So one thing I want to talk about, right? I'm going to skip a couple of things, but this is kind of where I feel, Leonardo da Vinci kind of started working on what it is to be a master, right? And it always starts with something. And here you go, right? And it says here, one day, sneaking into his father's office, he grabbed some sheets of paper, a rather rare commodity in those days. But as a notary, his father had a large supply. He took the sheets on his walk into the forest, and sitting up upon a rock, he began to sketch the various sights around him. He kept returning day after day to do more of the same. Even when the weather was bad, he would sit under some kind of shelter and sketch. He had no teachers, no paintings to look at. He did everything by eye, with nature as the model. He noticed that in drawing things he had to observe them much more closely and catch the details that made them come to life, right? So not necessarily, right, during our, career, during our road to mastery in the current profession is going to be taught by, schooling. Some of it is taught by nature. And in this certain calling to Leonardo da Vinci, it started with nature. One time, as part of his studio work, he was asked to paint an angel in a large biblical scene designed by Verrocchio. He had decided that he would make his portion of the scene come to life in his own way. In the foreground, in front of the angel, he painted a flower bed. But instead of the usual generalized rendering of plants, Leonardo depicted a flower specimen that he had studied in such detail as a child with a kind of scientific rigor no one had ever had seen before. For the angel's face, he experimented with his paints and mixed a new blend that gave it a kind of soft radiance that expressed the angel's sublime mood. To help capture this mood, Leonardo had spent time in the local church observing those in fervent prayer. The expressions of one young man served as the model for the angel. And finally, he determined that he would be the first artist to create realistic angel wings, right? So in observing nature and as a child drawing in nature, and then as he was tasked to, or he took on the task of this painting, and these ideas sparked, right, the curiosity of having to paint, not only a person in prayer, but also realistic angel wings. And then also again, as a child, he just engaged himself in drawing, that he understood like he had just a different vision for where he wanted to go. And then it kind of move forward, right? And it talks about again, looking at birds and kind of analyzing the birds for um, for the angel wings. Fast forward, it goes Sistine Chapel, right? Lorenzo compiled and sent to Rome all the best Florentine artists, excluding Leonardo. They had never really gotten along. Lorenzo was a literal type, stepped in the classics. Leonardo could not read Latin and had little knowledge of the ancients. So the Pope, what had asked Lorenzo to, assemble artists, so he can send to, start drawing on the Sistine Chapel. And again, because Leonardo was not educated, right? Leonardo didn't have that schooling. He did not know, Latin, and he wasn't chosen. So the decision, right? This is a decision that they don't know how to make. He made a decision that would change everything in his life. He would establish himself in Milan, and he would devise a new strategy for his livelihood. He would be more than an artist. He would pursue all of the crafts and sciences that interested him: architecture, military engineering, hydraulics, anatomy, sculpture. For any prince or patron that would wanted him, he could serve as an overall advisor and artist for a nice stipend. His mind, he decided, worked best when he had several different projects at hand, allowing him to build all kinds of connections between them. So again, right, he took on the challenges. He understood, after not being selected, right, the consciousness of, what, maybe I have to go find that education, and maybe not the formal education, but educate himself in the different artistries, right? So even in that moment in time, he understood that he had to go and because of his lack of knowledge, right, he had to now dip into these multiple different types of jobs to force himself in a way uh, to analyze these different ways of artistry. Continuing in self examination, Leonardo would have thought back to the one great commission that he accepted during the new phase of his life: an enormous bronze equestrian statue in memory of Francesco Sforza, the father of the current Duke of Milan, right? And he took on that task, right? That was the one of the things that he decided to take on, because again, he wanted to challenge himself, right? And sometimes we do things probably not as common, but we're gonna challenge himself. Leonardo challenged himself, right? So again, here we go. Leonardo worked on the design for months, and to test it out, he built a clay replica of the statue and displayed it in the most expansive square in Milan. It was gigantic, the size of a large building. The crowd that gathered to look at it were awestruck its size, the impetuous stance of the horse that the artist had captured, it its terrifying aspect. And then the word spread. For this purpose, Leonardo invented a total new way of casting because he was going to build this in bronze, and he kind of created a casting for it. Correct. So then here you go. A few months later, however, war broke out, and the Duke needed every bit of bronze he could lay his hands on for artillery. So what ended up happening is that the project never happened, right? But again, the education that Leonardo received by trying to sculpt this bronze statue. And again, during the process, there's going to be criticism. There's going to be people that are going to put you down. There's people that put him down, right? One time, even Michelangelo himself taunted Leonardo. You who made a model of a horse you could never cast in bronze, and which you gave up to your shame, and the stupid people of Milan had faith in you. He had become used to such insults about his slowness at work, but in the fact he regretted nothing from this experience, right? Never regret the experience, right? And that's something that, again, that's the value, right? Throughout the profession, throughout our mastery, throughout, this road, this journey, there's going to be mistakes, but we learn from those mistakes, right? And those are kind of like what angles us to become better, right? In the Army, we call them after action reviews, right? We kind of execute a mission, execute an exercise, execute we could do this even in our daily lives where we can reflect back and be like, you know what, we made this mistake or we didn't progress. Let's write this down and let's try to improve on that. Reflecting on his life in this way, he would have clarity detected that working of some kind of hidden force within. He would have clearly detected that working of some kind of hidden force within. As a child, this force had drawn him to the wildest part of the landscape where he would observe the most intense and dramatic variety of life. This same force compelled him to steal paper from his father and devote his time to sketching. It pushed him to experiment while working for Verrocchio. It guided him away from the court of Florence and in the insecure egos that flourished among artists. It compelled him to the extreme of boldness, the gigantic sculpture, the attempts to fly, the dissections of hundreds of corpses from his anatomical studies, all to discover the sense of life itself. Seen from this vantage point, everything in life made sense. It was, in fact, a blessing to have been born illegitimate. And that was the reason, right? That was the reason why Leonardo was not able to go to this formal education because he was born illegitimate and he had that that stigma attached to him. But again, right? Everybody's path is everybody's path. And in this case, this is kind of a short version of his life. But again, right? It all led to that point. It all led to him having to find a way to this road to mastery. So we're gonna go move forward. The key to mastery. Among his various possible beings, and this is this is a quote. Sorry. Among his various possible beings, each man always finds one, which is his genuine and authentic being. The voice which calls him to the authentic being is what we call vocation. But the majority of men devote themselves to silencing that voice of vocation and refusing to hear it. They manage to make a noise within themselves to distract their own attention in order to not to hear it. And they defraud themselves by substituting for their genuine selves a false course of life, right? And that's the force, right? The force. Many great masters in history have confessed to experiencing some kind of force or voice or sense of destiny that had guided them towards forward. For Napoleon Bonaparte, it was the star that he always felt in ascendance when he made the right move. Albert Einstein talked about a kind of inner voice that shaped the direction of his speculation. All of those are variations on what Leonardo da Vinci experienced with his own fault, with his own fate. Okay, and again, right? I always say this to anybody: is that your experience is your experience. Um, and it reminds me, right, as you know, some of the processes in life. You know, there's some mentors, and me. You know, this is kind of what I do when I do have a mentor. A leader. I always like to tell them where I'm at in the process, where I'm at in the process of what I'm trying to do, because again, what I always remember is, and it's maybe a form of respect, a form of gratitude, is this person took the time to train me, so I'm going to let them know this is where I'm at in the process. So if you find yourself in that process of learning from somebody, or becoming something in your profession of, let's say education, school, mastery, whatever, just whatever that is, whoever took that time to train you, mentor you, make sure that you, or I recommend, that you let them know where you're at in your process, because you just never know. Again, they're your mentor, they're your leader, they're that person that's taking that time to train you. So it easily there be that same person that probably went through the exact same thing you're going through, and maybe not tell you how to do it, but at least let you know, what, I've been there. And because he's the master, because he's the leader, because he's that mentor, you know that you're in the right path. All of us are born unique. This uniqueness is marked genetically in our DNA. We are a one time phenomenon in the universe. Our exact genetic makeup has never occurred before, nor it will be repeated. Again, you are you. Be the best version of you, right? Your experience, your life experience, your path, the way your journey is to get to mastery is unique to you. So, again, um, think about that, hold that in you. You are unique in your own version. And there again, there might be many other people within this path that that are following the same path as you to mastery, but they took their own path. So again, um, keep that in mind. You are unique in your way. What weakens the force? What weakens the force? What makes you not feel it or even doubt its existence is the degree to which you have succumbed to another force in life: social pressures to conform. This counterforce can be very powerful. You want to fit into a group. Unconsciously, you might feel that what makes you different is embarrassing or painful. Your parents often act as a counterforce as well. They may seek to direct you to a career path that is lucrative and comfortable. If these counterforces become strong enough, you can lose complete contact with your uniqueness, with who you really are. Your inclinations, desire become modeled on others, on those of others. Again, right? Listen to that force. And if you find yourself currently right now in a position where you are maybe again in a path that's not fulfilling, that is not what is it that you want to propel yourself to be, again, it's never too late. At all cost, you must avoid such a fate. The process of following your life's task all the way to mastery can essentially begin at any point in life. That hidden force within you is always there and ready to be engaged. The process of realizing your life's task can come in three stages. First step then is always inward. You search the past for signs of the inner voice or force. You clear away the voices that might confuse your parents and peers. You look for underlying patterns, a core to your character that you must understand as deeply as possible. The second, with this connection established, you must look at the career path you are already on or are about to begin. The choice of this path or redirection of it is crucial, is critical. So let's talk about the vocation, right? So this is where we're going to lead into the vocation portion of this. And so here we go. Instead, you want to see your work as something more inspiring as part of your vocation. The word vocation comes from the Latin meaning to call or to be called. So again, we're going to kind of establish what that vocation is. And then finally, you must see your career as a career or vocation path more as a journey with twists and turns rather than just a straight line. And we talked about earlier that when we started the podcast, right? The journey is going to be that, right? It's going to be the twists and turns. It's going to not going to be a direct path. So that's the challenge. The challenge is if you want to fulfill your mastery, start this journey, no matter what time or what place you're on currently. Um, that should be it, right? Eventually, you will hit upon a particular field, niche, or opportunity that suits you perfectly. You'll recognize it when you find it because it will spark that childlike sense of wonder and excitement. It will feel right, right? And again, during this process, right, there's going to be feelings. There's going to be the ups and downs. There's going to be like, am I on the right path? The doubt, right? But all I ask you is just keep on going because again, right, is that feeling that makes you that childlike wonder, that same as I was expressing earlier, that ability to the feeling I remember of climbing that tree, right? And whatever that is, whatever that sparks, as a child, I would draw, the artistry, whatever it is that calling that you just tap into that and realize that that's really what you were meant to do. Feeling that we are called to accomplish something is the most positive way for us to supply this sense of purpose and direction. It is a religious like quest for each of us. The quest should not be seen as selfish or antisocial. It is in fact connected to something much larger than our individual lives. And there you go, right? Um, so it's about finding that childlike feeling that we had as a child, right? Um, Goes back to Leonardo da Vinci, where he talked about, again, picking up that paper, drawing, no education, going through these many sources, different things, and eventually finding his love for what he was doing. So here we go. Strategies for finding your life's task. The misery that opposes you lies not in your profession, but in yourself. What man in the world would not find his situation intolerable if he chooses a craft, an art, indeed any form of life without experiencing an inner calling? Whoever is born with a talent or to a talent must surely find in that the most pleasing of occupations. Everything on this earth has its difficult sides. Only some inner drives pleasure, love can help us overcome obstacles, prepare a path and life, and lift us out of the narrow circle in which others tread out their anguished, miserable existence. And that's John Wolfgang. And we're going to go into, again, what are these strategies? And one of them is return. One of the first strategies is return to the origins, the primal inclination strategy. And again, this is kind of what those things are, right? So here we go. We're going to go into the strategies. Okay, return to the origin, the primal inclination strategy. For masters, their inclinations often present itself to them with remarkable clarity in childhood. Sometimes it comes in forms of simple objects that trigger a deeper response. When Albert Einstein was 5, his father gave him a compass as a present. Instantly, the boy was transfixed by the needle, which changed direction as he moved the compass about. The idea that there was some kind of magnetic force that operated in this needle, invisible to the eye, touched him to the core. What if there were other forces in the world equally invisible yet equally powerful? One of that were undiscovered or not understood. For the rest of his life, all of his interests and ideas would revolve around the simple question of hidden forces and fields, and he would often think back to the compass that he sparked the initial fascination, right? That sparked it. And again, right, a little bit of the Albert Einstein, and there's going to be, again, if you get the book, there's going to be other examples. Fast forward, you must understand the following. In order to master a field, you must love the subject and feel a profound connection to it. Your interest must transcend the field itself and border on religious. For Einstein, it was not physics, but a fascination with invisible forces that govern the universe. The importance of recognizing this pre-verbal inclination is that they are clear indications of an attraction that is not infected by the desire of other people. They are not something embedded in you by your parents, which come with more superficial connection, something more verbal and conscious, coming instead from somewhere deeper than you can only be your own, could only be your own reflections of your unique chemistry. Fast forward, your power and future can depend on the reconnecting with this core and returning to your origins. You must dig for signs of such inclinations in your earliest years. Look for its traces in ver- visceral reactions to something simple, a desire to repeat an activity that you never tired of, a subject that stimulates an unusual degree of curiosity, feelings of power attached to particular actions. It is already there within you. You have nothing to create. You merely need to dig and refine what has but buried inside of you all along. If you reconnect with this core at any age, some element of the primitive attraction would spark back to life, indicating a path that you can ultimately become your life's task. So again, your life's task, right? And with tasks, I guess in a way, we talk to tasks as something to do, right? Like a to-do list, a task to do, things we have to do in order to get to that goal. But ultimately, when you find that life task, these feelings, right, of childlike um, spark it, and eventually, you find yourself engaged in the fact that you love what you do. Occupy the perfect niche. This is a strategy too, right? To get back to this um perfect niche, the Darwin strategy. As a child growing up in Madras, India, in the late 1950s, B.S. Ramachan knew he was different. And I'm going to fast forward because really it's going to talk about all those, right? So it does talk about Ramachan and does talk about Yaki Matsuoka. Again, read the book, but we're going to get to it, right? The game you want to play is the game you want to play is different. To instead find a niche in the ecology that you can dominate. It is never a simple process to find such a niche. It requires patience and a particular strategy. In the beginning, you choose a field that roughly uh, corresponds to your interests: medicine, electricity, engineering. Again, when we talked about, read the book, but Mucosa's path, once you have mastered your first field, robotics, you can look for other subjects or skills that you can conquer. Neuroscience, on your own time for if necessary. You can now combine these added fields of knowledge to the original one, perhaps creating a new field or at least making novel connections between them. You continue this process as long as you wish. In Matsuoka's case, she never stopped expanding. Ultimately, you can create a field that is uniquely your own. This second version fits in well with a culture where information is so widely available and is which connects ideas is a form of power. In either direction, you find a niche that is not crowded with competitors. You have freedom to roam, to pursue particular questions that interest you. You set your own agenda and command the resources available to this niche. Unburdened by overwhelming competition and politicking, you have time and space to flower, bring to flower your life's task. And then we're going to go to the three, right, which is avoid the false path, the rebellion strategy. And I'm going to fast forward. A false path in life is generally something we are attracted to for the wrong reasons: money, fame, attraction, and so on. If it is the attention we need, we often experience a kind of emptiness inside that we are hoping to fill with false love of public approval because the field we choose does not correspond with our deepest inclination. We rarely find the fulfillment that we crave. Our work suffers for this, and the attention we may have gotten in the beginning starts to fade, a painful process. If it is money and comfort that dominate our decision, we are most often acting out of anxiety and that need to please our parents. They may steer us towards something lucrative out of care and concern. By lurking underneath this can be something else, perhaps a bit of envy that we have more freedom than they had when they were young. And then your strategy must be twofold. First, to realize as early as possible that you have chosen your career for the wrong reason before your confidence takes a hit. And second, to actively rebel against those forces that have pushed you away from your true path. Scoff at the need for attention and approval. They will lead you astray. Feel some anger and resentment at the parental forces that want to foist upon you a alien vocation. It is a healthy part of your development to follow a path independent of your parents and to establish your own identity. Let your sense of rebellion fill you with your energy and purpose. Again, right? Sometimes these, in the process, we're fighting ourselves. We're fighting external. We're fighting, the movements, right? It's the comfort zone. It's that line of crossing over, these doubts, the fears, the security. But again, it's, if you go and do it and do the work, you'll find it, that you're battling sometimes on a daily basis against those counter forces, right? Strategy 4, let go of the past, the adaptation strategy. All right, I'm just gonna fast forward. In dealing with your career and its inevitable changes, you must think in the following way. You are not tied to a particular position. Your loyalty is not to a career or a company. You are committed to your life's task, to giving it full expression. It is up to you to find it and guide it correctly. It is not up to others to protect or help you. You are on your own. Change is inevitable, particularly in such a revolutionary moment as ours. Since you are on your own, it is up to you to foresee the changes going on right now in your profession. You must adapt your life's tasks to these circumstances. You do not hold on to past ways of doing things because that will ensure you will fall behind and suffer for it. You are flexible and always looking to adapt. And number 5, right, the final, find your way back, the life or death strategy. Fast forward. The way back requires a sacrifice. You cannot have anything in the present. The road to mastery requires patience. You will have to keep your focus on 5 or 10 years down the road when you will reap when you reap the rewards of your efforts. The process of getting there, however, is full of challenges and pleasure. Make your return to the path a resolution you set for yourself, and then tell others about it. It becomes a matter of shame and embarrassment to deviate from this path. In the end, money and success that truly lasts comes not to those who focus on such things as goals, but rather to those who focus on mastery and fulfilling their life's task. Reversal. Some people do not become aware of inclinations or future career paths in their childhood, but instead are made painfully aware of their limitations. They are not good at what others seem to find easily or manageable. The idea of calling in life is alien to them. In some cases, this internalize the judgment and criticism of others and come to see themselves as essentially deficient. If they are not careful, this can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. All right, this is the reversal, right, of that. But again, kind of backtracking a little bit, is the challenges, right? It's the journey, it's the road to mastery, it's patience, it's sacrifice, right? So, I talked about on the previous podcast, right? The sacrifices of continuously having to deploy to these different theaters to understand what it was. Be patient, right? Be patient in your process because when you step over into whatever that the path was to mastery, once you're in that position, no one knows. No one's gonna know what one's path was. When you're there, they already seen you as a master, and you as you're going through your mastery, you don't understand that. You don't see that. So again, there's always kind of that saying of somebody kind of envies your position, and you in your current position don't believe it's really much. I was in that, but as you progress, you find yourself, you know, subordinates, people under you, even your peers look up to you because you're in their eyes a master. And again, in your road, you might make things look easy, but again, the reason why they look easy is because you took that time, that patience to nurture your mastery. So again, I always tell I always will tell anybody that asks, you know, be patient. Things will come, and when it's your turn, when it's your time, you'll know, and everything will fall into place. And in all these obstacles that happen in this path, they're there for a reason. They're there to learn from. They're there to say, you know what, that is your unique story. And then again, instead of being selfish with it, I will, share it with somebody. Share your path, because again, by sharing it now, there might be you might lose that opportunity to now give back. Because again, the same way that somebody gave something to you freely, this knowledge freely, it's giving back. Um, Kind of like currently in this forum, right? It's giving back for to those um, that has given to me. When you are faced with deficiencies instead of strengths and inclinations, this is the strategy you must assume. Ignore your weakness and resist the temptation to be more like others. Instead, like Temple Grayson direct yourself toward the small things you are good at. Do not dream or make grand plans for the future, but instead concentrate on becoming proficient at the simple and immediate skills. This will bring you confidence and become a base from which you can expand to other pursuits. Proceeding this way step by step, you will hit upon your life's task. Understand, your life's task does not always appear to you through some grand or promising inclination. It can appear in a guise of your deficiencies, making you focus on the one or two things that you are inevitably good at. Working at these skills, you learn the values of discipline and see the rewards you get from your efforts. Like a lotus flower, your skills will expand outward from a center of strength and confidence. Do not envy those who seem to be naturally gifted. It is often a curse, as such types rarely learn the value of diligence and focus, and they pay for that this later in life. This strategy applies as well to any setbacks and difficulties we may experience. In such moments, it is generally wise to stick to the few things we know and do well, and to reestablish our confidence. If someone like Temple Grandin, with so much against her at birth, can find her way to her life's task and to mastery, it means it must be a power assemble. It means it must be a power assemble to us all. And again, um, uh, that was chapter 1, and I'm gonna read this last quote, and then to kind of finish this off. Um, Again, right? Talks about some of us are not gifted, right? Some of us have to, maybe don't have that sense of energy, but we're good at something, right? Often I'm asked, why did I become right a warrant, or why did I become or choose this career that I am in currently right now in the military? And again, it kind of it's a venture off of many things, but again, I'm good at what I do, right? And this is kind of like that portion, focus on those things that you're good at and perfect them. And then you add to those, and then ultimately, becoming that master that you are meant to be. Sooner or later, something seems to call us onto a particular path. You may remember this something as a single calling in childhood, when an urge out of nowhere, or fascination, a particular turn of events stuck like an enunciation. This is what I must do. This is what I've got to have. This is who I am. If not, this vivid and sure. The call may have been more like gentle pushing in the stream in which you drifted unknowingly to a particular spot on the bank. Looking back, you sense the fate had a hand in it. A calling may be postponed, avoided, intermittently missed. It may also possess you completely. Whatever eventually it will out. Whatever eventually it will out. It makes its claim. Extraordinary people display callings most evidently. Perhaps that's why they fascinate. Perhaps too, they are extraordinarily extraordinary because their calling comes through so clearly and they are so loyal to it. Extraordinary people bear the better witness because they show what ordinary mortals simply can't. We seem to have less motivation, and they seem to have less motivation and more distractions. Yet our destiny is driven by the same universe engine. Extraordinary people are not a different category. The workings of this engine in them are simply more transparent. And that's Jane Hillman. So again, that was the end of chapter 1. Again, the Book of Mastery. Thank you so much again, for tuning in. Whatever that life task is, whatever that goal is, that you're pursuing, you're a professional. And that's kind of goes to the title of the podcast, right? He talks about some professionals make things look easy, right? But they're living out their vocation, their calling. They're living out those things that spark their childlike wonder. So we find ourselves, if one finds themselves in that current path of mastery, or find themselves, in a career path that might not be where they would have loved or would like to be, it's never too late. So again, click like and subscribe to the podcast. Click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Again, in the YouTube channel, I have not only do I post this podcast, but also post my workouts, post the 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 seconds of motivational, and then also if I read to my kids, Johnny the Reading Dad. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Um, One of the things I always say is, and I'll leave you with this: the world deserves the best version of you, but most of all, you deserve to be the best version of you. So if today is the day you start this road to mastery, I hope by reading this, by you tuning in, you start looking at those life tasks and life goals and these forces that propel you to be the best version of you. Um, and we're in this journey together. We're in this journey together, and everybody that's on this channel or in this journey, right? Whoever's listening to the podcast is in that journey. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Johnny Cinco, the professional, the road to mastery. Until next time, peace.